Please stand as you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Board of Trustees meeting for the School Town of Speedway for January 9th, 2024. We're working from an 11-item agenda, and the first item on the agenda is board reorganization.
Mr. Promotions.
Mr. President, in terms of board reorganization, I'd like to recommend the following people for board service. The first is, as President, Laura DeGay. As Vice President, Bill Harting. As Secretary, Tom Smith. As Corporation Treasurer, Nancy Johnson. As ISBA Policy Liaison, Laura DeGay. And as ISBA Legislative Liaison, Luke Bickle.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Okay. Well, first thing, before we even get to our next item on the agenda, is just to thank you for your service as president. And so we really appreciate it. The second item is to approve the minutes of last month's meeting of December 12th, 2023.
I'll move that we approve the minutes of December 12th, 2023.
Second.
Wonderful. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes indicate by raising your hand. All opposed? No one's opposed. Well, it looks like those are done. So as they're making their way back, we'll move on to item number 3, which is to adopt expenditure goals for 2024.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Speedway continues to exceed a target percentage, which is based on the latest available data of the recommendation to adopt the following goal. The School Town of Speedway shall maintain current levels between the expenditures for the student instruction categories and other expenditure categories as described in the Indiana Code for the next fiscal year. Some narrative around this. I'm very proud that Speedway Schools typically leads the state on the amount of money that we collect, that we put into the classroom. And most places would like to be over, 60 to 70%. By Indiana Code, you have to hit a certain level, and we're around 80% for what we put in our classrooms. So every year we take a hard look at that and to make sure that the money is going into the classrooms for various ways, but in the classrooms for the students. So the recommendation is just to adopt the expenditure goal through consensus.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the stated expenditure goal for 2024.
Thanks, Phil.
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this? Other than just thanks. It's impressive. I look forward to seeing that every year. And I think it's all part of the iterative process, and that sets up the ability for us to meet the high standards that we do. So. Call the vote. All in favor of adopting the expenditure goal for 2024 indicate by raising your hand. That passes 5-0. The fourth item is to approve adjustments of the 2023 budget appropriations.
Thank you. Each year, we come back to a routine matter. In December each year, the board authorizes the treasurer to transfer funds between accounts as required and necessary. A record of these transfers is included in the packet, and the recommendation is to approve these transfers as presented.
What's the board's pleasure on this?
I recommend that we approve the adjustments as presented.
Thanks.
I'll second.
Thanks, Tom. Any discussion on this one? Okay, all in favor of approving the adjustments of the 2023 budget appropriations, indicate by raising your hand. And that passes 5-0.
Per our corporation treasurer, she said sign where your name is, please. And there's 2 copies.
Okay.
Should have started that one.
Okay. That is done. And so, item 5 is the adoption of resolution to transfer funds to the rainy day fund.
The recommendation is to adopt the enclosed resolution to transfer $2,300,000 to the rainy day fund from the referendum fund.
I move we resolve to transfer funds to the rainy day fund in the amount of $2,300,000.
A second?
Any discussion on this one? Okay. All in favor of adopting the resolution to transfer funds to the rainy day fund, please indicate by raising your hand. And that also passes 5-0.
And that resolution is just treasurer, or I'm sorry, secretary and president. 2 copies, please.
Okay, they go back. Which way does this go? John?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Okay. Number 6 is to update and approve the 2024 salaries and benefits for non-teaching groups of employees.
Mistake was making. We left a name off from the last year's, for the last document in December, which we usually bring this. So I just want to bring it to your attention so you can see the full list here and get approval for this. The recommendation is to approve the updated 2024 salaries and benefits for the non-teaching groups of employees.
Board's pleasure.
I'll move that we update and approve the 2024 salaries and benefits for the non-teaching group of employees.
Second.
Thanks. Any discussion on this? No. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yep.
All in favor of updating and approving the 2024 salaries and benefits for the non-teaching groups of employees, indicate by raising your hand. And that passes 5-0. The 7th item is to present the 24-25 Speedway High School course description guide. And I believe we have a guest to do that.
Hello, Mrs. DeGay, Board. As always, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening to kind of go over our course description guide tonight. You know, any questions that you may have, you can stop me or we can wait till I kind of present this information. But what I was hoping to do was kind of give each and every one of you some context and explanation on some of the things that we're doing as a school district in regards to our course offerings in an ever-changing landscape. So we're having to pivot with the different things that come from the DOE and the legislature, and we'll go over some of those items and I'll explain some of our thought processes. There's been a lot of discussions with admin team, teachers, our elected teachers on what's some of the best offerings for our kids. And we will talk in greater detail as we go through the document. As always, all highlighted items reflect changes or additions from this current academic year curriculum guide or course description guide. Do realize that all the descriptions come from the 24-25 Indiana High School course titles and descriptions from the IDOE. The only descriptions that you will see that are not authored by the DOE are honor prep courses, because those descriptions aren't available in the course description guide from the DOE. So those are authored from our faculty members, and we go through and we look at that and try to make sure that it reflects what the course description is. Do know that new courses and/or policies may be needed to be added to the 24-25 curriculum guide to comply with the recently passed initiative, which I talked about some last year, the Next Level Programs of Study, also known as NLPS, and the still developing initiative, Rethinking High School. NLPS aims to improve consistency, quality, and intentionality of career technical education instruction, CTE courses, and it aims and will impact the elective course offerings that we have at Speedway High School. The Rethinking High School initiative aims to increase diploma flexibility by redefining required courses and sequences and increasing access to work-based learning opportunities and credentials of value. They have not fully disclosed what the changes in the diplomas or the sequence of classes will be, so we're still awaiting that information to come from the state and from the DOE, and obviously whatever those directives are, we will adhere to those, but it does make, planning for the upcoming year challenging. Currently, our current classes need different requirements for their diploma and their graduation requirements, and we'll talk more about that as well. But due to the NLPS initiative, current juniors, which is the class of 2025 and beyond, need to complete a different sequence of CTE electives than previous cohorts. So our current senior class, the class of 2024, they have different concentrated courses that we can use to complete Box 3. Classes such as architecture and design, advanced manufacturing, those classes are no longer considered next level programs of study. So our kids that are younger than our current senior class can't use those courses to check off Box 3, which is the post-secondary competencies which you have to graduate from high school. For the current school year, the only Speedway High School course offerings that count towards a CTE concentrator are Project Lead the Way courses, so that's our Intro to Engineering and Design, Principles of Engineering, and our Civil Engineering and Architecture class. Please note that a CTE concentrator can be used to complete Box 3, which, as I said, is the post-secondary ready competencies for a graduation pathway. And as I stated last year, we actively are exploring additional Speedway pathways to always give our students as many viable options as possible to complete a CTE concentrator. And those additions have been added to this document. Any significant change from last year's curriculum guide has been stricken with the strike through, with the old verbiage remaining. The table of contents is actually accurate, but as I adjust this, it will be revised as we get different inputs and different suggestions. So just know that table of contents will be adjusted as well. And the next page just kind of gives some context and some information on the changes that were made. So one of the things that we were trying to figure out is how do we encompass what our CTE courses are. So business, for instance, our computer science department is under the business umbrella, but that's really not the proper description. So we did away with the business description in engineering and technology department and put it under one umbrella known as CTE, Career and Technical Education, just to kind of be in, to make sure that we continue with the language that the state is saying for the courses. So you won't find courses under a business department or engineering and technology department. It will all be under the CTE department. On page 3, we updated the school, as you know, the number of students. Currently, we have 568 students. That, again, is an increase from last year, which was 560. Today, Mr. Claiborne and I yesterday met with another student that will possibly be enrolling, so we may be at 569 by the end of the week. Our dual credit courses, as I said, the advanced manufacturing logistics courses are no longer CTE concentrated courses under the next level programs of study. So in replacement of those courses, again, to give our students, and I'll get into this a little more, but we added mechanical and architectural design and what is called BIM architecture, which is building information modeling. And these courses count towards a CTE concentrator. And I'm in talks with, I meet with Ivy Tech to continue those being as dual credit courses. So making sure Mr. Roseborough will be the person teaching those courses. And he was able to have dual credit with his manufacturing classes through Ivy Tech. We want to continue that partnership with these new elective courses. On page 6, we removed digital media since personal financial responsibility will be a required freshman course. So all freshmen, beginning with the class of 2028, will be required to complete a personal financial responsibilities class, just as government or English. So again, as we look at our personnel and we look at 150 freshmen needing to take a required course for graduation, common sense, it only makes sense to pair it with the required health course, because digital media is not a required course for graduation. So we're looking at how that personal finance class, and we've had some training with some of our teachers, because if Mr. Dunphy, who currently teaches our personal finance class, were to teach that, it will be 4 sections required to accommodate all of our freshmen, and that would essentially kill our computer science program. So we're looking at the teacher who taught digital media to replace his course, Mr. Dorman, replace his course with the personal financial responsibility class. And students would have health one semester and personal financial responsibility the second semester. The additional CTE courses that were added, also one of the benefits is that they can count as science elective courses. So we added an environmental sustainability course, and again, I'm going to give you the context of some of these things. These conversations are happening with Ms. Mulperry, who currently teaches our Project Lead the Way courses, which are our IED, POE, and our CEA class. And the IED course is the general course. So every student can take the IED course, and then students will have pathways on either continuing with Project Lead the Way, with principles of engineering, and then the third course being this environmental sustainability as opposed to the civil engineering. And talking with students with us already offering the architecture, again, to give our students more flexibility, it didn't make sense to have architecture and then also through Mr. Roseborough, and then also have architecture as the ending class for Project Lead the Way. So the environmental sustainability course allows our students to also count that as an additional Core 40 science class, as well as not have as much as the technical math and math and science that would be involved in the engineering course. So we'll still have our engineering course, but the third course for Project Lead the Way would be our environmental sustainability. And I added that to the table because and I'm just going through if you look at that table on page 7, you'll see that those courses also can count towards any Core 40 science course. Added personal financial responsibility to the table as well, because that's now a requirement for the core class of 2028, and that is a requirement for any diploma that you earn, whether it's for 440, academic honors, or technical honors diploma. On page 11, I added language from the DOE about the ASVAB. I don't know how, again, this was things I was explaining to our staff. They have, ASVAB used to be one of the things you could use to check off box 3. The student had to earn at least a 31. So if a student didn't pass the SAT, or if they didn't take 3 AP classes, that student could take an ASVAB, earn a 31, and they have checked off box 3, and we're good to go. A lot of schools were using ASVAB as a way to check off box 3 for some of their most vulnerable students who weren't meeting pathways in other ways. And so the state has now changed using ASVAB. You have to now sign an intent letter to go to the military. So a student who was using the ASVAB to complete box 3 will also have parents and the student will have to sign a letter saying they intend to go to the military. I have my thoughts on that, but you also have to use that intent even if you don't pass the ASVAB. So even if you can't go to military because you didn't earn the right score, the student still and the parent still has to sign an intent letter to go to the military that they can't go to because they didn't get the score on the ASVAB. And I say that because, remember, if a student doesn't meet box 3, they have to have 3 attempts to earn a waiver. So the SAT would count if they didn't pass that. If they took 3 AP classes and didn't pass those, that could count. And then if the student also took the ASVAB, that can count as 3 attempts for a waiver, so that student still can earn a diploma. you can't use that third attempt for an ASVAB unless the student and the parent sign an intent letter to go to the military. So that was been added as well. If you read anything with the next level programs of study and the reimagining or rethinking high school, they talk about state and industry recognized credentials. And our students who earn credentials generally earn those through the Area 31 programming. But we are trying to have a credential that students can earn at Speedway High School. And that credential is the Python credential, which is a computing credential known as Python. And that will be taught as a dedicated course called Principles of Computing, where students can take that course over a year's time to be able to take the Python exam at the end of that course to get a credential. And again, this is trying to give us as much flexibility for a student to be able to complete Box 3, the post-secondary competencies. And so when I talk about Box 3, I want you to realize the profile of student that I'm describing. Most of our kids check off Box 3 through either passing the SAT or taking 3 AP classes, because as you know, our AP program involves 92% of our student body. The other 8%, however.
What, could you say that again?
92%, yes, it's a significant amount. Yeah. So we get a lot of our students, and you have to have a C average in 3 AP classes to use that for Box 3. But when you get a student who may have just moved in from another school district, another country, has not been in school for multiple years, we're still charged with making sure this student checks off Box 3. So the more options that we have, whether it's through that certification, whether it's through Mr. Roseborough's architecture classes, whether it is through the additional classes we added with Ms. Mulberry, which is Principles of Childhood Education. These are courses to make sure that we have something for everyone so that we can ensure that our students are able to graduate. Now, if they weren't, what happens, the consequence of that is that schools' graduation rates will be impacted by that. So as you may know, right now, I think you could have a waiver threshold of, I believe, 9%. And then it goes to 6%. And then the following year, it will go to 3%. So this year, class of 2020, well, this year, the current class that just graduated, class of 2023, our waiver, we had five students. So, no, 5%. So I believe it was 6 students. So we're well under that 9% threshold. But once it hits 3%, we want to continue to make sure that we're under that of students who just absolutely could not meet Box 3 through all the options that we've had. And even those 5 or 6 students that needed a waiver for the class of 2023, 4 of them were students that came to us their senior year.
And just to clarify, you're talking about the 2023 non-waiver graduation rate?
Yes.
Right. So Speedway schools, I just so happen to have it right here. It's funny you should say that. 95.97%. But my understanding, talking to you guys, is that we had multiple move-ins right at the end to where, obviously, is what you're just saying. Is
Yes,
that,
and you
that
add the
we don't
pay-
even have time to check off the box, which is, I like to be number 1 in everything. We're number 2, by the way, across the board. So.
And our graduation rate was actually, the total graduation rate was 99%. But if you add
Right.
the waivers,
The
that's
non-waiver.
where you get, right, that's where you get.
Because the other
Exactly.
corporations around are quite a bit lower.
Yeah. So, again, just to give you some context on that, career technical education concentrator, I see some typos in this, so forgive that. I think I left out a P for proficiency in the Python programming language. And so what was also removed was the civil engineering and architecture class, and I kind of explained why, because it's kind of a duplicate of what we're doing with Mr. Roseborough. So we want to have 2 different pathways for those groups of kids with Ms. Mulberry and Mr. Roseborough, whether it's the architecture or the engineering side of things. So those things were removed as well. And of course, we added the additional CTE course offerings besides the Project Lead the Way courses. I did kind of explain the sequence of how the different sequences of the CT electives so that you could kind of understand how that worked. Based on our current course offerings, the only Speedway high school classes that count as a CTE concentrator, as I said, were Project Lead the Way classes. A CTE concentrator can, again, be used to check off Box 3. So if the architecture and early childhood education concentrator pathways are viable, our students would have 4 CTE concentrator pathways. That would be our Project Lead the Way concentrator, our architecture concentrator, and our early childhood education concentrator. I didn't include the computer science is also a concentrator, but the students that would complete, the profile of a student that would complete the computer science concentrator would be a student that, there are multiple AP courses involved in that. So again, as I think about, as we have to have something for everyone, I didn't include that specific computer science concentrator as the one that a student would have that just moved in and hadn't been in school for, several years. So just know that those are our 4 offerings. So, and I wanted you to see how we're trying to, again, grow our programming as the legislation changes, as the landscape changes, to make sure that we continue to service all of our students. Another option that we're carefully looking at are also locally created pathways. So schools can create or apply for a certain pathway, and the state or the DOE has approved, I believe, 12 locally created pathways. So these are what pathways where a school district does the legwork, connects with industry, or applies to the DOE asking that they count whatever their proposal is as a pathway, as a concentrator. The ones that are probably most viable for us are connecting English language learners to successful employment pathway. That's a locally created pathway in Perry Township schools, as well as the evolution towards employability pathway. And these pathways, they have already been approved by the State Board of Education, so we would not have to apply for those. There are some things that we would have to put in place in terms of, for instance, with our English learners for successful employment, they would have to do some work badging, some interviewing with local industry. At Perry, those students actually are able to interview with the school district for jobs, whether it's with custodians or cafeteria, after they graduate, obviously. But those are things that they are trying to do to accommodate that group of students that may not match check off box 3 through SAT or AP courses. So those are some things that we're also looking at, again, to give us as much flexibility as possible in to service every type of student that may come through our doors. I won't read to you the Ivy Tech Community College. As I said, I changed that to CTE courses. I removed the dual credit courses that were no longer available to this remaining cohorts that will be at Speedway after this school year. And I added the new Ivy Tech dual credit CTE course offerings. And as I said, I will be speaking with Ivy Tech actually later this month and making sure that we can continue that credentialing. The new courses that you will see there, I did add Intro to 2D Art and Intro to 3D Art. We currently have art classes, but again, we're always looking for what is the most practical art classes that we can offer our students. So the drawing and painting and ceramics remain, but the 2D and 3D art are art classes that encompass or embody some of those classes and aren't as specific or aren't specific as this is a ceramics class. You may have a ceramics unit, you may have some other things, but you get some other things encompassed in that art class. So again, a more overarching class. And I haven't had an opportunity to talk with Ms. Mata since she's been on maternity leave, but just seeing what's the best offering for our students, because art is an elective that our students do take. It's an elective that students use for academic honors diploma. So we want to, again, make sure that obviously we have art electives for our students. Other classes that were struck through, you see those, and then we added the principles of computing on page 27. Again, that's the Python course or the Python certification that I discussed. And these are things that we have not done this year. So as I think we were speaking earlier, you mentioned about the business course. That was a course that we were thinking maybe that was a pathway we could go down. We had students sign up for the course, but also if we were to continue to build upon that pathway, there's trade-offs in whatever we do. We would be giving up our computer science program if we were going to go down the business pathway. And so our computer science program is thriving. So we again wanted to make sure that we had CTE courses or elective courses that could reach a wide range of students. And so we thought the early childhood, as well as the mechanical architecture, Mr. Roseborough classes did just that for us. You see the description of the principles of early childhood education. Those other two classes that you see after that, early childhood education and curriculum and early childhood education guidance, those are not classes that we would have offered next year, but that is the CTE pathway. So you start off with the principles of early childhood education as the first year introductory class, and then you continue with those other two courses, and that would count as a CTE concentrator. So of course, that's why I added those. The environmental sustainability, again, I'm not going over the strike-throughs, but the environmental sustainability was the course that I offered. This is actually a course that Ms. Mulperry has taught before, has a lot of expertise with. The first two courses still follow a Project Lead the Way format. And this class, again, I think is a broader course that still will allow our students to earn a technical honors diploma, as well as continue to go through that engineering pathway using the environment as the capstone class. So that, I think, would be very interesting for our students because, again, it's not as specific to civil engineering. And if you look at those numbers are not nearly as large as her IED numbers. So, again, trying to make sure that we offer things for our students that they are interested in and also serves the purpose of making sure that they graduate. Added the mechanical and architectural design courses that I already discussed, and got rid of the digital media, as I mentioned, because the personal responsibility will be the required course for class of 2028. So we kept a personal responsibility and prep for college career course that Mr. Dunphy already teaches. And the reason for that, that is not for the freshman class. Those freshman kids will still go in personal responsibility and health. But the personal responsibility and prep for CC class is still a viable elective, especially when students move in because they're semester electives. So we didn't want to get rid of that course. It just won't be the freshman personal responsibility class. And it gives me an opportunity, if those courses do get large, I still have a section of it where I can put some students that Mr. Dunphy would have to make sure that those class of 2028 kids meet that requirement for graduation. So, as you know, we talked about our AP success. That program remains as robust and continues to flourish. But regardless of, and that's one hat I'm wearing, or that we wear as a team. However, we're always looking for additional curriculum options to help further and serve our students. Continuing to look at dual credit options that don't conflict or compete with our AP program offering, and enhance college credit opportunities for all of our students. I continue to work with our network, a network of resources to see what offerings we can have. One of those meetings with Ivy Tech is also with Eli Lilly for a biotech program that they're springboarding. And this is just for me to get more information. So our ears are always open to how we can best serve our students. So any questions that you may have? Didn't want to get too long-winded, but it was a lot of information. It changes each year. So,
Not a question, but a comment first. Could you have imagined when you were sitting in my office interviewing for a job that the puzzle was so much easier to put together back then, and you don't even know what the puzzle is going to look like for this year right now.
right.
It's just amazing, which leads me to my second point. Kudos to you, the administrative team. There's so much more to deal with than there was just a few years ago. And it's one of the reasons why our school system is what it is because of people like you and the people that are working with you to put all this together to make what's best for kids at Speedway High School. And I know I speak for all the board. We really appreciate all the work that goes into this.
Thank you. I appreciate those words. It is it's a constant learning curve. Mr. Disney and I met sometime in this December, I believe, for about an hour and a half, just going over all these different changes and things that are happening and what is being said and what are they proposing and how do we react to the different changes. You know, I mean, and I don't want to get on a soapbox, but what appears to be happening, obviously, you need people. We need viable employees, and you need to be able to have students be able to join the workforce. I happen to be a firm believer that if you teach kids how to critically think, how to problem solve, how to analyze, how to compare and contrast, how to learn some things. They don't have to specifically know at 14 that they're going to be a welder. They can be a great welder if that's what they decide to do. but they still need to be able to read, write, and problem solve. And so while this is the direction that we go, I think still our philosophy and our essence of Speedway High School is that we will continue to make sure that we educate each and every student that comes through our building, and that they are able to go do whatever it is that they choose to do, whether it's a 4-year school, a 2-year program, the military, whatever they choose to do, we just want them to be prepared. So.
Well said.
Yeah, very much so. I have a couple just specific, give me a little more information questions. So when we are removing these manufacturing logistics, advanced manufacturing, does that change like our building use? I mean, I'm envisioning those classrooms as, like, what about that classroom that we saw, that incredible stuff that we were in the partnership with somebody, and it was amazing, and they're printing and whatever. I mean, does that all go away, or is that?
No, because what those conversations that we were having with teachers, that when we sat down, and I met with Rosie multiple times about what offerings should we do, we were looking at this. The Next Level Programs of Study is a massive document. I think it's 340 pages. I believe. I mean, it's a big document. So we were going through what classes complement what he was currently doing and still allows us to use, our resources, his curriculum, things that we can kind of seamlessly try to transition to. And so he was already teaching architecture drafting 1 and 2. And so while with the Next Level Programs of Study, there are some more detailed things that you do in terms of standards and curriculum-wise. But the class setup, the curriculum was the most closely aligned to be able to seamlessly transition to that course. So no, that now with the early childhood education course, again, we're starting off with that first principles class. And so it would not, she would just pick up a section of that. She would still have her Project Lead the Way class, and she would do that class in her Project Lead the Way class. So yeah, and she's already licensed for early childhood education. So again, that's a broad. I mean, again, that worked as we continue to have these discussions and say, okay, what can we offer? What do you have the credential to teach? What is a broad offering for our kids? Again, I think that fits. Gives our students, again, more options.
Well, that makes sense, thanks. What's the value of having this credential, this Python credential at home, rather than, why take that on, I guess?
Okay,
Why
well,
not?
the credential, they have a list of credentials through workforce development that they continuously remove and add to. They're called high value credentials. So these are credentials that industry says that if you have this credential, you're employable right out of high school. So a student that is not planning on going to a 4-year institution, or maybe you are planning on going to a 4-year institution, having this programming credential, this Python credential, allows you to be, employers have said this is a valuable credential to have. We've tried different credentials before. In years past, we had digital applications where students could get a credential in Microsoft Office, Excel, and I think PowerPoint. They removed that one, right? When kids were getting it, so that's not a high value credential. So that is now removed. There's several credentials, but this credential, in talking with Mr. Dunphy, we had a couple of kids doing the credential this year, just in his class. It wasn't a dedicated class. We were going to pay for them to take the exam at the end of the year, just to kind of get, again, a profile of a student on if this is a viable option for students. And in my discussions with him, he was saying that if I was able to teach this class for 18 weeks per semester, I could get even our students who may struggle, I think, as a way to get through this certification. So not only does it help us check off box 3, it gives that student employability skills right out of high school.
Okay. And my last question, thank you for that, is, so when we do something like, we need this personal finance class, and it makes sense to put it in the spot of digital, whatever that was.
Digital media.
So what we were teaching in digital media just isn't taught anymore, and that's because, are we good with, are we comfortable with that wasn't really that helpful or needed? I mean,
Well-
it sounds like there's a little bit of this is how to make the schedule work.
Yes.
Are we okay giving up that?
Right, great question again. The digital media, one of the main benefits of the digital media, and Mr. Dorman teaches that, and the students do some things on Google, you were able to count it as a semester English credit, right? So that's one of the positives that you could use it as. It could count as an English credit. It didn't benefit our students as much because the students who were needing the English credits, who may need it outside of your 9, 10, 11, 12 English credits, were able to count E&L credits. So if a student, that's normally for our students who are English language learners that are needing some additional English credits. So we're able to count those E&L credits. And so when we're weighing the priorities of, okay, this is a required class, who can teach this personal finance class to the whole cohort of 2028, where you don't have to get a new teacher, or, it was a trade-off with the digital media, but because digital media is not required, it is an elective course that we tied with health after we stopped the digital applications, because remember I was saying that the certification went away. It used to be digital applications in health, because that was a way to try to see if we can get a kid a certification first as soon as they started high school. Once those certifications went away, we switched to the digital media, saying, because we need one semester class to tie with this health. This health is not a year-long course. So what is a valuable class that we can give our freshmen, get them acclimated to high school, make sure they know, Google Suites and those types of things. But in talking to Mr. Dorman, even with their personal finance, those are things he can still incorporate in that curriculum while still making sure that they have the requirement they need for graduation. So it doesn't completely go away, but it wouldn't be digital media as we see it now.
Great, that's super helpful, thank you.
We also have Area 31 still.
Yeah.
You said 92%, check that box, because with 92% of our students are enrolled in AP classes, but we also have over 30 kids that are going to Area 31 that checks the boxes off that, and that's open access as well as our AP program for Area 31.
Yes. And I'm predicting this year that Area 31 numbers, because counselors just went in classrooms. Mr. Bennett was in classrooms last week talking with those students about Area 31. Our numbers will increase. I think this year we had 39 students. 39, 38.
Yeah,
and
we've always floated around there.
Yeah, so the Area 31 program, and you would notice, Dr. Trevor, from just the meetings you've had with the superintendent meetings that you've been in, those programs have gotten competitive. So again, going back to what you said years ago, when we would send students to Area 31, the student who was taking AP classes was not, that student didn't attend Area 31. It's not a vocational program now, it is a career center. So you have they have pharmacy tech, they have biomedical this, so they have a lot of very specific programs, and so they have select spots. So students still have to have strong GPA. So again, when I talk about that profile of that student that just moves in or is credit deficient, Area 31 is probably not a viable option, because it's an application process. So while it's open access, they can still say, okay, we have 20 spots, we're going with the 20 top GPAs, and whoever's under that, you need to either pick another program or you didn't get in. So.
But we're a partner school with Area 31.
Yeah.
That's a better way to say it's open access. I guess that's a better way to put it.
So we have the same, there's just another viable option for our kids. And a lot of our kids go to Area 31 and still earn their technical honors diploma. So even if there's elective choices that we have that they're not interested in, that is, like you said, we send, and that was 39 juniors and seniors. So that's a nice chunk of those cohorts. Yeah. When you think about our size of classes.
And you go back multiple decades, you talk to Ms. Smith, myself as high school, we pretty much could tell you exactly what we need teaching-wise with what class is needed. And like what Mr. Smith was saying, what we're all thinking is the change that's going on. We basically ought to have 30 staff members, teachers at the high school, and you're talking about 4 or 5 that you have to play with licensing to make this thing work. So the puzzle isn't just a 4-piece puzzle, it's on top of the licensing, and they change the game about every 2 years. So great information today, so good luck to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just waiting for 1 year where all 4 classes just have the same.
Yeah. Well, now we're all 4 different. I mean, I think
Yeah,
what I
it's
was
been
looking
like
at, I'm like,
years.
all 4 is going to be
And to
different.
try to keep that you know it's convoluted when you're trying to, I have my 8th grade parent meeting in March, and and you have a kid that's just coming from middle school. These parents have never had a student in high school. It's overwhelming information. You're trying to tell them, I'm trying to give them the basics and talk about box 3 and box 2 and box 1. And my kids
Thought I was getting a diploma, not a
yeah,
box.
I thought my kid was just going to high school and taking English, math, science, and social studies. But those days are changing, so.
Well, I apologize for not telling you that years ago. I didn't see it coming either, so.
So I appreciate you all support and flexibility in allowing us to get started and, adjust, because that flexibility is priceless. It really is. If every change or things we're talking about, I had to come and say, can we, well, the trust you have given our team is truly appreciated.
And as this isn't an action item, so it's not, we won't approve this tonight, I would anticipate that we would approve it when it is on the agenda to be approved, and
In the past, do we give you at least permission to start scheduling and
Oh, yeah.
building?
Yep,
Right?
yep, yep.
You all have done
Minus major
Yep.
grammar changes, bring it back and we'll approve it, so.
Right. What you all have done in the past is always given provisional approval.
So you can do registration,
And if
yeah.
there's any
build it.
significant changes, then I would come back before you. But that's why I put everything in it. So it allows me to kind of, if we weren't offering English next year, I'd come
We're
back.
still getting guidance on how to build this ship for this year, right?
Yes.
Kudos to you guys at the high school for preparing for all of the kids. I mean, not
Yes.
just our kids, and very proud of our kids that take the, AP classes, but we get students, the more mobile students that we have, we get students that don't have that, so it could really ding our graduation rate if we didn't do what you're doing. And kudos to you guys for doing that, because that's why our graduation rate is what it is. So,
Thank you.
thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. You
Feel
all have a
free
good-
to.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. The 8th item is acknowledgement of some amount of, where is that? Yes,
It's a good one.
yeah, it's a good one. Of $811,851 in grants. Amazing, awesome. We'll take it. And then the 9th item is to approve the personnel report.
Personnel this evening has 4 items on it. The first is a retirement. Brian Kiefer has submitted his letter of retirement. He's been the Director of Facilities for us for the last 10-plus years, and he's going to retire effective July 31st of 2024. We have one resignation, that is Taylor Jones, who was in the role of the social emotional mentor. And we have 2 items that we're recommending employment. One is Lauren Molson, who is going to be a long-term substitute teacher at Newby Elementary in the 3rd grade. And then Marcus McCormick, who's going to take over the role of sports equipment manager. And my recommendation is to approve the personnel report as presented.
I recommend that we approve the personnel report as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Awesome. All in favor of, any discussion? All in favor of approving the personnel report as presented, please indicate by raising your hand. And that passes 5-0. And do we have any other business?
Nope.
Okay, then we will adjourn to sign claims.